Yeah, it was definitely another Murderbot book. Hey everyone, and welcome to the channel. Today I'm going to be talking about System Collapse, the new Murderbot novella by Martha Wells. This is, another Murderbot entry. Like I said, with that cold opening, if you have read one Murderbot book at this point, you have basically read them all. And, I don't think that's a horrible thing, but I also don't think it's a great thing anymore. I ended up giving this book a 3-star ranking, which means I liked it. I know some people think that's a really bad grade, but no. To me, that means it's a good book. It's not anything really special, and it's definitely not a bad book. It's right there in the middle, right where it should be, and it's good all around. Now, this book takes place directly after the previous novella, and I mean like directly after. And before I get too far into this, I'll talk about some of the things that are present that I like about this series in general, because it pretty much applies for all of the books. This is a fun, fast-paced, light-hearted series where you get to deal with a slightly anxiety-filled robot that is funny and, is growing, but very slowly. It finally has some human companions. It interacts with other robots in meaningful ways, I guess. And in general, it's just a good time. It's a light-hearted read. It's nothing too serious. These are all very short. This is a novella. There's only one full-length novel in this whole series. But in general, I don't have much to say about it in a positive light because they're all basically the same. Once you've read one Murderbot novella, you've basically read them all. There's not really anything different between them. Yes, there is definitely some character growth. There are definitely some character relationships that have grown throughout the books, but in general, it's just the same thing with a slightly different story, with slightly different action. There's not too much different. And I think at this point, that's why any Murderbot I read going forward, unless there is really big changes to the story, to the plot, to the characters, they're all just going to be a solid 3-star palate cleanser, fun kind of thing. And I actually have more problems with this book than any of the other Murderbot stuff that I have read in the past. And let's start off with that this novella takes place directly after the previous novella. But the previous novella is not the most recent entry into Murderbot. The most recent entry is a full-length novel. And that was a very confusing timeline to kind of jump back into. Sure, that's on me a little bit. I guess I could have looked up this book a little bit more and maybe have reread the novella to like refresh myself, but I don't feel like that should be necessary, especially in a novella format. And in general, that kind of irritates me more about Murderbot as a whole than anything else that goes on in this series. These are novellas, and this is the first time where it's really bothered me that they are novellas, especially because this just felt like instead of publishing one full book with novella 5, and technically this is 7 because 6 is a full-length novel, that this was a cash grab. That this wasn't done because of a story need, because this series is just novellas. This just felt like they're milking it. That this and the previous novella should have been one book. And there's nothing I think that you could convince me of that would change my mind on that. I mean, these things might as well take a stapler, staple them together and read them that way, because that is what this book is. And it's kind of unfortunate because, I've seen this sentiment said about Murderbot, that it's just kind of the same thing over and over again, that it's kind of just a cash grab. And, I've always kind of pushed back against that a little bit, but this is the first time that really, to me, I'm very disappointed in just that kind of aspect of it. There's nothing really new or innovative done here or anything like that. And, it's frustrating that I feel kind of ripped off. I read this, basically, I got it, I downloaded it right on release day and listened to it, and, the audio's done well, the story is fine, all of that. It's all good, it's all fine, but I can't help but have a sour taste in my mouth about how the publication of this came to be. And maybe there's justifications for it, reasonings, I don't know, I'm sure somebody could justify it. But to me, as somebody who just spent my money on this, I'm very disappointed that I feel like I bought one novella that was half finished, and I bought the next part of it, kind of like a DLC for a video game, where, they release a video game that's not done and then they sell you the expansion later on that you wanted. That's kind of how this felt like, but just in book form. So it was really weird overall. And then my only other real thing I have to say about it, there's a lot of this book that just felt like kind of mindless, pointless action, where it's like, I don't read Murderbot so much for the action. I kind of read it for the light, comedic aspects of Murderbot interacting with its environment. And it felt like a lot more of this book was focused on just not weird, but just a lot of action heavy stuff where it's like, it's not even that it's hard to follow. It's just not entertaining to follow. There's not any oomph behind it. It felt shallow and not necessary. There was one little good twist kind of mixed into here that I thought was kind of interesting and different, but it was just too little. in this story, in a story that's not very long. This is, you know, a 6-hour audiobook, so it's nothing. And, you know, just overall, even though I liked it and I enjoyed my time with it, it makes me just kind of have a sour taste in my mouth with what I mentioned, with it being a novella expansion pack, basically. And yeah, that's kind of all I have to say about it. If you have read Murderbot, you're gonna like this. It's not anything new or different. If you've never read Murderbot, All Systems Red is a great read. It's super fun. There is just a little bit of charm missing from this one. And I would encourage Martha Wells to go and continue the novel-length format of these books. Really give, you know, your writing ability a chance to flesh things out, really push a story forward in a meaningful way. And yeah, the novella, I'm sure, great cash grab. Yeah, that sounds very negative, but that's just kind of how I feel about it at this point. But that is kind of my sounds very negative, but I did like this book, so keep that in mind. But yeah, if you have read Murderbot, let me know if you plan on picking this up. If you have picked it up already, let me know what you thought about it, and am I kind of off base with this just being a cash grab at this point? So let me know all of that down below in the comments, and as always, have a good one.